In Europe, in February 1945, the Axis forces were in retreat on all fronts. The Red Army had crossed the Oder River and was now less than 80 kilometers from Berlin. On the Western Front, after a month of intense fighting, the German Ardennes offensive ended in failure. U.S. Marines were preparing for the landing on Iwo Jima. The Yalta Conference was held, attended by Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. The main topic of their discussions was the post-war spheres of influence. In the Balkans, the Yugoslav People's Liberation Army, with Allied support, had liberated the eastern part of the country. German forces withdrew toward the northern Adriatic, while the Mostar operation was ongoing in Herzegovina. The British light cruiser HMS Delhi, built at the Armstrong shipyard in Walker, entered service in 1919. 2 steam turbines with a total power of 20,000 horsepower allowed her a maximum speed of 29 knots. The ship was armed with 6 6-inch Mark VII guns, 2 76.2mm anti-aircraft guns, and 12 533mm torpedo tubes. In 1941, at the U.S. Navy Yard, Brooklyn, the cruiser was converted for anti-aircraft purposes. The main guns were replaced with 5 American Mark XII anti-aircraft guns, 2 more pom-pom guns, and 8 Oerlikons for the same purpose were added. The cruiser Delhi, before and after modification, was actively involved in World War II. She participated in operations in Equatorial Africa against French colonies loyal to the Vichy government, as well as in Operation Torch, the Allied landings in North Africa. On November 20th, 1942, off the coast of North Africa, Delhi was damaged by German bombers. After repairs in 1943, she provided artillery support for Allied landings in Italy. During Operation Avalanche, off Salerno, she collided with the British cruiser Uganda and was again sent for repairs. Subsequently, during the landings at Anzio in Operation Shingle, Delhi escorted Allied convoys in the Western Mediterranean and provided artillery support during Operation Dragoon, the landing in southern France. At the end of 1944, she was transferred to the Adriatic, where she served as an anti-aircraft and command ship in Split. By direct order of Adolf Hitler, in April 1941, the Axis powers attacked the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. Within just 12 days, Yugoslavia signed its capitulation. The city of Split then formally became part of the Axis powers' puppet state, the independent state of Croatia. But already a month later, with the treaties of Rome, it was handed over to Italy, along with most of Dalmatia. During the brief April War, the city was bombed by Italian aircraft, and units of the Italian Second Army entered it. Italian administration was soon established, and Split became the capital of the province of Spalato. Italian rule faced strong resistance from the Croatian population, and the city quickly became one of the centers of anti-fascist struggle in Dalmatia. After Italy's capitulation in 1943, partisan units entered Split, further arming themselves, while approximately 2,000 citizens of Split joined them in the fight. Following the withdrawal of the partisans, German forces entered the city, and the independent state of Croatia authority was reinstated, lasting until the final liberation of Split on 26 October 1944. Meanwhile, Allied air forces repeatedly bombed the city, inflicting its greatest destruction of the Second World War. After the Kingdom of Yugoslavia and Greece capitulated in April 1941, the entire eastern Adriatic coast fell under Italian control, as Italy was a member of the Axis powers. Under these circumstances, the British Royal Navy could not operate effectively with surface ships and relied on submarines to conduct attacks on Italian convoys, with relatively limited success. With the Allied landings in Sicily and the subsequent takeover of much of southern Italy, the British Navy was able to return to the Adriatic in greater strength. Although the primary mission of these forces was to secure the right flank of the Allied advance through Italy, the British simultaneously armed and cooperated with units of the Yugoslav Partisan Navy in liberating the Dalmatian islands. A day before the German forces withdrew from Šibenik and Split, Rear Admiral Charles Eric Morgan, commander of British naval forces in the Adriatic and Ionian Seas, arrived in Croatia. One of his key tasks was coordinating mine-clearing operations in the approaches to the ports of Zadar, Split, and Dubrovnik, in cooperation with the Navy of the Yugoslav People's Liberation Army. However, relations between the two Allied forces soon became strained. Without prior approval from the Yugoslav Army headquarters, the light cruiser HMS Delhi, accompanied by a destroyer, entered Split Harbor, while at the same time the cruiser HMS Colombo entered Zadar. The commander of Delhi, Captain Gilbert Ridley Weymouth, stated that he was arriving in the capacity of a liaison officer and requested permission to establish a signal station and open an office ashore. This unilateral action triggered an official protest from the Yugoslav naval staff, which objected to the breach of command hierarchy and lack of coordination. Despite this, the British side maintained its position, and no satisfactory diplomatic agreement was reached. Soon, all official contacts were suspended. The British crew was prohibited from going ashore, and all customary privileges usually granted to Allied ships in ports were revoked. The primary source of tension between the Allies, however, was political in nature, primarily due to the increased presence of the British Navy in the Adriatic Sea. In addition to the military liberation of territories, Marshal Tito simultaneously laid the groundwork for a new social and state order. As the war drew to a close and the Yugoslav army grew sufficiently strong, Tito sought to exclude both Russian and English involvement in the final liberation of the country. In contrast, Winston Churchill, in his plans, considered the possibility of an Allied landing in Istria. This was not favorable to Marshal Tito, given that Istria had been under Italian administration before the war, and any British presence on its soil could complicate the international recognition of this Croatian region as part of the future Yugoslavia after the war. Consequently, a clear political military directive was issued. Yugoslav forces were to enter Trieste before the Allies. Tensions caused by the presence of British warships in Croatian ports lasted nearly a month. By mid-December 1944, relations gradually stabilized and returned to the inter-Allied framework, in line with the prevailing political and military situation. As a gesture of goodwill, a football match was held between the crew of the cruiser HMS Delhi and Hajduk Split. Hajduk Football Club was founded in 1911 and since 1923 has continuously participated in all national competitions, both in Yugoslavia and later in Croatia. After the establishment of Italian administration in Dalmatia and attempts to integrate Split's clubs into Italian national championships, Hajduk resisted by organizing a boycott. When clubs that refused to join the fascist party were declared illegal, Hajduk ceased operations. Numerous players and club officials joined the underground partisan movement, and following Italy's capitulation, relocated to the island of Vis, where they revived the club. A series of matches followed, the most notable being in Bari before 40,000 spectators against a British Army team, which Hajduk lost 7-2. After the liberation of Split, the club returned to the city and resumed activities at its traditional playing field. The crew of the British cruiser HMS Delhi, then anchored in Split Harbor, played a friendly match against Hajduk at the old stadium, in which Hajduk defeated them 8-1. During the final months of World War II, the British Navy maintained a constant presence in the Adriatic Sea. The main forces consisted of Hunt-class destroyers along with two older cruisers, HMS Colombo and HMS Delhi. The presence of Allied warships in this part of the Mediterranean created, in the eyes of the German command, the impression of a possible Allied invasion of the Balkan Peninsula. Consequently, the Kriegsmarine decided to act preemptively. The goal was to neutralize the Allied naval forces while they were still anchored. The primary target was HMS Colombo, a cruiser stationed in Zadar harbor. Like her sister ship Delhi, Colombo was built at the end of World War I, but later modernized and refitted for anti-aircraft defense. In addition to this role, Colombo provided logistical and naval gunfire support to British units operating in the region. On the night of 17th–18th January 1945, a formation of the German Kriegsmarine departed from Pula. 7 torpedo boats of the 3rd S Flotilla, supported by 2 explosive boats. The mission objective was to eliminate HMS Colombo. Around midnight, at the entrance to the Zadar Channel, German units detected silhouettes of a British patrol consisting of 2 motor launches. A brief but intense naval engagement ensued. Artillery fire was exchanged, and the Germans launched several torpedoes, none of which hit their target. Although less heavily armed, the British vessels were faster and significantly more maneuverable. Additional patrol units and coastal artillery soon arrived to assist them. Under the cover of darkness, the German boats managed to maneuver to their anchorage, but did not locate HMS Colombo or any other strategically valuable target. The attack was called off, and the German units withdrew toward Pula. During the operation, 3 German boats sustained damage.
During the failed attack on Zadar harbor, 2 explosive boats were also deployed, although they were not used. This type of vessel, commonly known as fire ships, has been used for centuries, becoming more systematically produced during the American Civil War. The Germans employed similar vessels during World War I. Explosive-laden boats were guided by a cable connected to a control unit. In World War II, in the Pacific, Japanese forces used similar methods in suicide attacks, kamikaze, producing hundreds to thousands of units. The Germans developed radio-controlled boats, most commonly of the Linza type. The Italians advanced furthest in the operational use of explosive boats. Realizing that their navy could not directly confront the British fleet in the Mediterranean, they turned to experimental methods of naval warfare. Among these were midget submarines, human torpedoes, and explosive boats, relatively inexpensive to produce, yet capable of delivering a disproportionately large effect. An attack on anchored vessels in Suda Bay, Crete, demonstrated their effectiveness. 3 boats breached 3 layers of floating nets without incident, then rammed the heavy cruiser HMS York and the tanker Pericles. The cruiser had to be beached to avoid sinking, while the German Luftwaffe claimed credit for its destruction. The explosive motorboat NT, Motoscafo da Turismo, known as a barchino, was designed to approach an anchored warship stealthily, set a collision course, and accelerate to full speed during the final 200 to 100 meters before impact. Once the rudder was locked, the pilot would eject from the vessel. Upon collision, a small explosive charge would rupture the hull amidships, sinking the craft and detonating the warhead, which was equipped with a hydrostatic fuse calibrated to detonate at a depth of 1 meter. The boat was powered by a 95-horsepower Alfa Romeo AR outboard engine, allowing an impressive speed of 53 knots under full load. The engine drove a counter-rotating propeller mounted on a double-jointed shaft beneath the stern, which also functioned as a rudder. A notable feature was the ability to rotate the propeller to the starboard side to prevent it from protruding below the hull. This allowed the vessel to pass over torpedo nets without snagging. Above the stern, a catapult seat was installed, which, after the pilot ejected, served as a mini life raft, keeping the pilot afloat and protecting him from the deadly shockwave of the underwater explosion. Formed as counterparts to Allied commandos and the Italian HMS units, the mechs were established relatively late in World War II. Operating as commandos and naval saboteurs, they operated behind enemy lines near the coast, attacking port facilities, bridges, ships, supply depots, ammunition stores, and other strategically valuable targets. The authorized strength of a single mech unit consisted of 1 officer, 22 soldiers, and 15 vehicles, although in some cases formations could grow to 150 specialists. Most were experienced swimmers and divers. In the Wehrmacht's southern sector, the main naval commando units were Mech 20, Mech 71, and Mech 90, commanded by the operational staff of Captain Werner Hartmann. Very little is known about Mech 20 operations in the Adriatic. The unit was stationed in the Split area in September 1944 and withdrawn from the Dalmatian Islands in the spring of 1945. Mech 90, from September 1944 onward, participated in heavy combat operations in the Dubrovnik and Metkovic areas. Afterward, the unit withdrew to Germany and did not engage in further actions until the end of the war. Mech 71 was the most active operational command on the Adriatic. From December 1944 to the end of April 1945, combat swimmers of this unit operated along the entire Dalmatian coast, conducting numerous reconnaissance missions in enemy harbors, as well as attacks and sabotage operations. These actions were generally supported by torpedo S-boats of the 1st Division of the K Flotilla. Operational targets included the islands of Olib, Silba, Molat, and Dugi Otok. In Šibenik harbor, since no military targets were found, the unit destroyed a lighthouse. On the island of Ist, explosive devices were planted and detonated. In the port of Zadar, 2 ships were sunk. One of the planned attacks was intended against British vessels in the Komica Bay, but the operation was postponed due to adverse weather conditions. The most successful operation was carried out near Ancona, where several bridges and a train loaded with ammunition were destroyed. Allied naval activity in the Adriatic, combined with fuel shortages and a lack of available crew, hindered the Germans from organizing any significant operations in the Adriatic during 1945. Nevertheless, it was decided to launch Operation Sophia, conceived as an attack on the port of Split. Ships of the second group, 3rd Torpedo Flotilla, were to transport 6 explosive motorboats, some 200 kilometers from Pula, to Split. The plan envisaged 1 boat ramming the harbor entrance ramp, while 4 would attack a moored cruiser. Surviving commandos were to be picked up by the mothership and hidden in one of the coves until the following day, when they would be retrieved by vessels of the 3rd Flotilla. The cruiser HMS Delhi had been moored in the harbor for some time, at the St. Douge Quay. Next to her was a landing craft, converted into an anti-aircraft platform. With a crew of 76 and an additional 12 light anti-aircraft guns, these vessels provided significant supplementary protection for ships and installations. From Pula on 11 February, 4 torpedo boats set sail and soon entered Chikat Bay on the island of Loshin, where they embarked 6 explosive motorboats of K Flotilla 612, personnel from Mech 71, and combat divers. Under the cover of darkness, they proceeded towards Split, and near the island of Drvenik, the boats were launched around 23:30. During this operation, the mothership was lost, and its role was assumed by another vessel,
allowing the mission to continue with 4 operational units. For unclear reasons, the group did not take the shortest route, but navigated through Split gates, where they were immediately spotted by Partisan sentries. Since the boats did not respond to recognition signals, the sentries fired a warning shot into the air. Under the cover of darkness, the Germans continued toward Split, and due to frequent unannounced nighttime movements of British torpedo boats, which also failed to respond to signals, the sentries took no further action. At the entrance to Split Harbor, the sentries first fired a rifle shot as a recognition signal, to which the Germans again did not respond. At Cape Sustipan, a Bofors gun, an Italian Breda cannon, and a searchlight were positioned. When the searchlight was activated, it illuminated the first explosive motorboat intended to detonate on the harbor entrance barricade. The barricade had been erected, but the diver either failed to notice the obstacle or was temporarily blinded by the searchlight, directing the boat toward the cape on the right side of the harbor, where it soon detonated. The Partisan Guard then unintentionally illuminated the cruiser Delhi with a searchlight, enabling the Germans to locate the target. In response, the British opened warning fire on the Partisan positions, causing the searchlight to be turned off. The second boat entered the harbor, but was soon stopped by Oerlikon anti-aircraft guns mounted on the cruiser. The third boat penetrated the harbor the farthest and reached its target, detonating near the landing craft and inflicting significant damage. The fighting briefly subsided, but the sentries at Sustipan soon located the fourth boat, first with the searchlight and then with direct fire. The boat moving toward Chiovo was neutralized by a large explosion. One diver was captured inside the harbor, while a patrol vessel discovered a second diver near the shoreline, and a third diver was apprehended while hiding on Mariam Hill. The fate of the fifth boat and 2 divers remains unknown, though it is presumed they were killed during the attack. The fate of the 3 captured German divers remains uncertain, as the partisans often did not maintain formal military records. It is possible that the prisoners were executed immediately. After 4 years of war, Axis forces had treated partisan personnel and their relatives as bandits, executing them without trial. The partisans, in turn, were often ruthless toward German prisoners, particularly members of SS units, who were executed on the spot, while members of the Wehrmacht and Kriegsmarine generally received comparatively lenient treatment. The landing craft suffered severe damage during the attack, while the cruiser, HMS Delhi, sustained damage to its propeller and rudder. It was soon towed to Malta, where, likely due to its age, it was never repaired and was shortly thereafter decommissioned. Following the partially successful attack, the British blamed the Yugoslav sentries for negligence, further straining relations. It was evident that the dual-layered defense system had proven ineffective, as had been the case during the attack on Zadar, where the British were solely responsible for the harbor's defense. These disagreements were quietly suppressed to avoid further deterioration of relations, which had only recently been smoothed over after the Allied downing of a plane carrying General Vlado Chetkovic. After the evacuation of German forces from the Balkans, Mech 71 continued operations along the eastern coast of Italy, where most unit members eventually surrendered. The remaining personnel were quickly integrated into Wehrmacht units, which operated locally and remained active until the end of the war. In a symbolic context, Hajduk later defeated the crew of the cruiser Delhi in a football match, this time by a score of 12-1. Even more notable was the rematch against the British Army in Split,
attended by 7,000 spectators, where Hajduk won thanks to a goal by Frane Matosic. Throughout 1945, the club continued tours in Italy, Malta, and the Middle East, concluding the wartime period with a total record of 53 victories, 6 draws, and 6 defeats. The attack on the cruiser Delhi remained the final military action of World War II in Split.